Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how I made this beautiful dress. Please keep on watching and let's get started. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you get notified anytime I upload a new video. I mixed the color and fabric for this style to give it a more beautiful look. So if you are recreating the style, you can decide to use a single color for the dress. It is still fine, and you can decide to mix it like mine also. I have 2 yards of scuba fabric here and it is very stretchy. I would advise that you use a very stretchy fabric, and I have this organdy fabric here. It is about 1 yard. The other type of scuba is not here. I didn't include it in this video, but it is also a stretchy scuba, and the last thing you'll be needing is your zip. I am starting with the front pattern. I have the shoulder line, the chest line, the bust line, the under bust line, the waist line, the hip line, the knee line, and the full length of the dress. Shoulder to the chest line is 8.5 inches, to the bust line is 11 inches, to the under bust is 14 inches, to the waistline is 18 inches, to the hip line is 26 inches, to the knee line is 37 inches, and to the full length is at 47 inches. I'll mark the shoulder measurements divided by 2 plus 0.5 inch for seam allowance. I'll mark it on the shoulder line and also on the chest line, and I'll connect with a straight line. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark the neck width and the neck depth. I'm using a neck depth of 4 inches and a neck width of 3.5 inches, and I'll connect with a curve. Next, I'll come down by 1.5 inches for the shoulder slant, and I'll connect it into the neck width. I'll mark the round bust measurements divided by 4. I'll mark it on the chest line, and I'll go up from that point by 3 inches, and from the 3 inches mark I'll go in by 0.75. I'll connect those 3 points together to form the armhole. Next, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4. I'll mark it on the waistline, and I'll add 1.5 inch allowance for that. On the hip line, I'll mark the hip measurements divided by 4. I'll connect those 3 points together first before going to the lower part. On the knee line, I'll deduct 1 inch from what I marked on the hip line and put that measurement there and also at the full length. I'll connect the remaining points together now. The next thing is to go in with the bust band measurements divided by 2. I'll mark it on the waistline. On the hip line, I'll go up by 2 inches and mark it there, and I'll also mark it on the bust line, and I'll connect those points together with a ruler. I added 1.5 inches to the waist measurement. I'm going to go out by 0.75 on both sides of the dart leg on the waistline, and I'll connect to the top and bottom like so. I'll separate the lower bodice from the upper bodice now by cutting from the waistline, so you can label the down part the skirt part. The difference between the front and the back half length of the measurement I am working with is 2 inches. That is what I am going to take in as the bust dart. From the bust line, come down by 2 inches and connect with a straight line to the bust point. I am marking the under bust measurements now, and from where I marked it, I'm going to measure what I have left from the point I marked to the end. What I have left, I'm going to share it in between the 2 sides. I'm putting half inch on the side facing the center front and 0.75 on the side facing the side front. Now I'll connect with a curve to the bust point and with a straight line to the waistline. Because of the design we have from the front all the way to the back of this dress, I'll be using the shoulder dart for this pattern. So from the shoulder, get the midpoint of the shoulder and make a mark at the midpoint. And from that midpoint, you are just going to connect it with a straight line to meet the bust point. This part I am shading is the bust dart we are going to take out from the pattern. That is all on the front pattern. I am cutting it out now. For the back pattern, I have the shoulder line, the chest line, the waist line, the hip line, the knee line, and the full length of the dress. Shoulder to the chest line is 8.5, to the waistline is 16 inches, to the hip line is 24 inches, to the knee line is 35 inches, and to the full length of the dress is 45 inches. I have a zip allowance of 1.5 inches by the side of the pattern. Now I'll go in with the shoulder measurements divided by 2 plus 0.5 for seam allowance. I'll mark it on the shoulder line and also on the chest line, and I'll connect with a straight line. I'll mark the neck depth and the neck width. I'll use a neck depth of 1.5 inches and a neck width of 3.5, and I'll connect with a curve. I'll extend the neck depth into the zip allowance. I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slant, and I'll connect with a straight line to the neck width. I'll go in with the bust circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it on the chest line, and from the shoulder slant, I'll divide what I have left into 2 and get the midpoint. At the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.5. I'll connect those 3 points together to form the armhole. On the waistline, I'll go in with the waist measurements divided by 4, and I'll add 1 inch allowance for that. On the hip line, I'll go in with the hip measurements divided by 4. I'll connect those 3 points together first before moving to the down part of the dress. On the knee line, I'll deduct 1 inch from what I marked at the hip line, and I'll put that same measurement on the knee line and at the full length. I'll connect the remaining points together now. On the waistline, I'll mark the bust span measurements divided by 2. At the chest line, I'll come down by 1 inch before marking it, and at the hip line, I'll go up by 2 inches before marking, and I'll connect those points together with a ruler. I added 1 inch allowance for that on the waistline. Now I'll go out by ½ inch on both sides of the dart leg, and I'll connect to the top and bottom like so. I'll cut from the waistline now to separate the patterns. Just like we did with the front pattern, I'll be using a shoulder dart for the back too. So just get the midpoint on the shoulder, and from that midpoint, you are going to connect it to meet the dart line. That is all for the back pattern. I'll cut it out now. I have transferred my patterns to fabric, and these are my front pieces. I added ½ inch to the part I'll be joining together on the front to complete a single piece for the front, but for the side joining I did not add any allowance. Remember, I am using a stretchy fabric. The scuba I am using is very stretchy. For the lower parts, I didn't add any allowance to the side also. I only added ½ inch to the top and 1 inch for hemming allowance at the bottom. Also, I closed the dart with a masking tape because I don't want a dart on the skirt part. These are my back pieces, and the same thing I did to the front applies to the back too. I only added ½ inch to the top and bottom, and the side I'll be joining to complete the back piece. No allowance on the side joining. Same thing with the skirt part, no allowance on the side joining. ½ inch at the top and 1 inch for hemming. I have the center front on the table now. I am going to take the back center piece also, the 2 back center piece, and I'm going to pin it together with the front, right side facing each other. I'm going to pin it at the shoulder and go ahead and stitch with ½ inch seam allowance. This is after I was done stitching, and I went ahead to use the overlocker to finish it up properly. Now the next thing I am going to do now is to, from the bottom, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches. On the other side also, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches, and from where I have the marking, I am going to measure what I have there. Whatever measurement I have is what I'm going to use to cut out the flare. In this case, you are going to replace the waist circumference with the measurement you got when you measured from the front to the back. Now that we have gotten the radius from the top of the fabric to where I have the marking on the fabric, I used 5 inches to achieve that. The 5 inches we got from the last explanation. So now the next thing you're going to do is to mark the length of the flare. Here I am using 6.5 inches for the length of the flare. So I'm just going to connect it like so, and after connecting I'm going to cut it out. This is for one side of the dress. When I'm done cutting this one out, I'm going to use it to cut out the second one for the other side of the dress. After cutting, you're going to open one side of the flare. Because we cut out a 360-degree flare, both sides are closed, but you need to open one side. From the top of the flare, I'm going to use my chalk to curve it in, just to achieve a little bit of curve on the ends of the flare. So just curve it in like so and cut it out. Now I am going to use this one to cut out the second flare. I have the two here now. I am going to set it aside and bring in the main bodice. What we are going to do here is simple. We are just going to fix the flare to the bodice from the front to the back. I am marking the 1.5 inches again on the front and the back. You need to mark it on both sides of the bodice. And then I'll start by notching the center of the flare. Then match the center of the flare to the shoulder joining. Match the center to the shoulder joining, and then you are going to pin the ends of the flare to where you have the marking on the bodice. So you are going to do the same thing for both the front and the back. Pin the ends of the flare to where you have the marking on the bodice, and then you are going to do the same thing to the other side. After pinning the other side also, just go ahead and stitch with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure that the right side of the flare is facing the right side of the bodice. I am done stitching here, and this is what we have. The next thing is to attach the side pieces of both the front and the back. So I'm going to set this aside now and bring the side pieces for both the front and the back. You are going to place the front pieces on one side and the back pieces on the other side. Then you are going to place it on each other, right side facing each other like you see me doing with mine, and go ahead and stitch with 1/2 inch. This is what we have after stitching. You can use your overlocker to finish it up properly. And now you are going to attach it to the center front. What you are going to do is to match the shoulder joining together. Match it together and also match it at the end like so. And once you are done matching it, go ahead and stitch with 1/2 inch. I am going to do the same thing to the other side. Match the shoulder joining together, and after matching the shoulder joining, you are going to stitch with 1/2 inch. Match the bottom part also, pin it down, and then after pinning, you are going to stitch with 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is what we have after I was done stitching, and you can see what the inside is looking like. Now the next thing is to join the lower part of the dress to this upper bodice. I'll start by joining the front first before moving to the back. So I'm going to place the skirt part of the front and place it on the upper bodice, right side facing each other, and I'm going to pin it down. I'm going to join it together with 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I'll move to the back. We are going to repeat the same process for the back also. Place the skirt part on the upper bodice and pin it down, and go ahead and stitch with 1/2 inch seam allowance. After stitching, I'll bring it back and show you. This is after I was done stitching, and you can see I went ahead to close the back and leave a space for my zip and the slit at the back. The next thing I'm going to do before I fix my zip is to finish up the neckline. So I'll first go ahead and overlock the neckline, and I'll bring it back. I am done overlocking the neckline here. I'm just going to fold it in with 1/2 inch and stitch it round. Now that I am done with the neckline, you can see what we have. The next thing is to fix in the zip to the back. I'll go ahead and fix the zip now, and I'll bring it back and show you. I am done fixing the zip here, and this is what we have. At this point, you can go ahead and iron the joiners properly before joining the side. Now I have ironed mine, and I'm just going to go ahead and join the sides together. I have put the markings on the fabric. Remember, I did not add any allowance to this fabric, but I'm going to use 1 inch allowance to join together. It is going to fit because it is a stretchy fabric. I have my basic sleeve pattern here. It is a long sleeve pattern. I'll be doing an alteration to the sleeve to achieve the sleeve you saw on the thumbnail. The length of the sleeve is 26 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is to cut out the band because the sleeve has a band, so we are going to remove the band from this pattern. From the hem, I mark 3 inches and I'll connect that into a straight line and cut it out. That part will serve as the band. You can label it the band and point arrows to the top and bottom so that you can easily identify it. For the rest of the pattern, I'm just going to separate it with 2 lines. I'm leaving a space of about 2 inches in between the lines. What we are doing here is slash and spread, so I'm just going to connect the lines to the top. After connecting, I'll label it 1, 2, 3 and then cut it out. I am transferring the band to fabric here. I folded my fabric into 2 and I folded it at the top again. That is into 4. So the part that has to be at the bottom, at the end, has to be folded. That's the sign I'm making on the pattern. So that part has to be folded. I have placed it on the fabric now and I'm going to hold it down with pins. After securing it with pins, I'm just going to cut it out. This is the first one. I'm going to use this one to cut out the second band. For the main sleeve, I have pinned the patterns to the fabric and this fabric is folded into 2. In between the patterns at the bottom, I have a space of about 1.5 inches and at the top, I have a space of about 2 inches in between the patterns. Now I'm just going to cut out, adding an allowance of 1/2 inch at the bottom side and at the top. Now I am going to use the first sleeve to cut out the second one. My fabric is folded into 2 again. I am just going to use this one to cut out the other sleeve. The first thing I'm going to do on the sleeve is to first stitch the band. So now just exactly the way I'm folding my band now, you are going to fold yours into 2 and go ahead and stitch it from one end to the other end with 1/2 inch seam allowance. You are going to do the same thing to the other band also. And for the main sleeve, you are going to go ahead and join the sides with 1/2 inch also. This is after joining the sleeves and the band, and this is what we have. So now you're just going to flip your band to the right side and you're going to run a stitch to secure it down when you're done. And now I've put a gather stitch at the bottom of the sleeve, so you're just going to fix it to the band like so. I'm going to do the same thing to this other sleeve. I'm going to pull the gathers at the hem. After pulling the gathers to the size of the band, I'm just going to go ahead and join it together with 1/2 inch seam allowance. You are going to join the band and the main sleeve together, right side facing each other, and just go ahead and stitch with 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead and do that now and I'll bring it back and show you. This is it after I was done, and I went ahead to overlock the inner seams, and you can see what we have on the right side. I put a little bit of gathers at the top to give it that puff sleeve effect. If you have watched up to this point, I'm saying a big thank you to you for your support on my channel. Now the last thing for this dress is to attach the sleeves to it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Please turn on your notification bell so you will get notified anytime I upload a new video. Please follow me on Instagram at stitchedbyst and I will see you in my next one. Bye.